Good morning, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to the Sideline Report. This is Todd Griffin of the Princeton Times-Leader, and special guests in the studio with us today, former co-host of this show, Ty Englebright, is back in the house.
All right.
Good morning, Ty. How's it going?
Good morning, Todd. Great to be back. Thanks for inviting me.
And friend of the show, Gary Goodacre.
Happy Thanksgiving, Todd
Yes.
and Ty. It's
Happy
a pleasure
Thanksgiving,
to be
everybody.
Here.
Thanks.
Let's talk some sports. Is that the format today?
That's what we've got lined up to go, and we're bringing back the top five, at least, in maybe a little different form today. Ty, this was your idea, so do you want to talk about our top five that's coming up a little bit later?
Well, in honor, I guess, of hoops season and Thanksgiving, I know football is big on Thanksgiving Day, but we're getting ready to start our high school basketball season. College season's underway. I thought it would be fun to have a starting five Star Wars team with a coach. So when you called me and said, you want to come back and talk and some Star Wars, and I said, yeah, and he said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, let me think about it. So I thought it'd be fun to have a Star Wars basketball team and a coach. So
Yeah,
that's
that'll
what
be
we're
good.
going to talk about today.
That's what I've got. Gary, you've got one of those too, right?
I was informed to bring five. I think I've got a span, though. So I
that's
don't know
okay.
if I'm allowed to do that.
I think
That'll
yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Well, one of my five is probably going to foul out, so I definitely need a sixth man.
Well, yeah, and if you want to throw somebody on the bench, I've got somebody riding the bench too. So
Oh, I didn't do that. I've got to work on this during
Yeah.
the show, I guess. But we got that top five coming up. We're going to talk a lot of sports and some good things, so stay with us. But first, we need to get to a break. We're coming back on the Sideline Report right after this. And good morning once again. We're back on the Sideline Report. Ty Englebright and Gary Goodacre joining us this morning. And, football season still going for a lot of high school in the state, but we've kind of narrowed it down. And, I think one of the biggest surprises last week, at least for me, was the way LaRue County came back and won at Elizabethtown, down 20 going to the fourth quarter, came back and won that game. And, LaRue County was pretty good, and Gary, we saw that out here at Tiger Stadium a couple of weeks ago.
We saw a train came through.
Yes.
It was an A train.
An A train.
He was something else. And it made me wonder about how I seen on Twitter them talking about be ready for November, play in November. They had a November-style team.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
whatever weather came, you could have basically done their dominant up front line and the Louisville commit, Adkins, and it looked like it worked. I definitely think that Elizabethtown was probably overlooking them. It just seemed like the way the game flowed on Twitter that, as you said, 32-12, kind of hard to imagine a running team
Right.
making up such a deficit, but they did.
But they got a couple of onside kicks late that made up for a lot of it, too. And I think they tried that little squib kick against us out here. And, the big thing, we just couldn't stop Anthony Adkins. I mean, he was just a load, had 309 yards against us, had another 214 against Elizabethtown. And, part of you thinks that you look at that and you think, well, LaRue County went to E-Town and won, so maybe the Tigers could have too. And you'll never know because it ends up being about matchups.
That's right, and of course, as Gary said, a train, and I loved your headline, Todd, on the Times Leader, a steady Adkins diet, I think, something like that, and
A heavy Adkins.
heavy Adkins diet, and you got to tip your hat to that kid, but also a lot of credit to Coach Jaggers and his staff, not only for our Caldwell County game, but to go up there in that environment, Elizabethtown, and to pull that thing out, as Gary said, you wouldn't think that a running team down that late could do that, but those play calls and the execution by those kids got it done.
Yeah. Getting back to Caldwell County, though, I thought it was a great football season. I know everybody always wants to win one more game, and everybody has their eyes set on, hey, let's go try to win that state championship. But you look at the run Caldwell County has had for probably 6 or 7 years now, it's difficult to complain too much about that if you're a Tiger fan.
What I've noticed about our teams over the past few years is the fact that we're sending many people to play at another level. We've had amazing talent, and we've been able to get them opportunity for excellent education, as well as to be able to show the younger Tigers that there are opportunities if you play hard work, and you may even have to change positions or do something unique like Mitchell Harrison and be a long snapper. But if you have the talent and the dedication, there's somewhere for you if that's what you're looking for.
No doubt about it. And, I think a lot of it goes to just the coaching staff in general. Coach Barnes, and them talk about it a lot, about how they've been together, all these years. And that, and then on top, I've heard, a previous show made with David Brown talking about our junior pro program and how these kids play together all these years. And I think that has been vital in the success of the Caldwell County Tiger football program the last several years.
Yeah, I mentioned that last week when David Brown was in here, that I think sometimes people look at those junior pro teams and they see the jamboree at the end of the year and they're like, well, why did Crittenden County win, or why did Webster County win, or why did Union County win? And, you start thinking, well, maybe the future's not bright if the youth teams aren't winning. But they're playing with half a team because we split our teams because we have so many kids. When you put those kids back together later on, that makes a big difference.
Well, when I coached 12U baseball, my youngest son, I was fortunate to have two other coaches, Jeff Bard and Joe Van Hooser, who were willing to split the teams up evenly. Interestingly enough, we went 2-2 against each other in league play, but we wanted the games to be better competition. If one of us were stacked against the other two, nobody gets anything out of it. We got more competitive opportunities. People could play more positions, and that's similar to our white and gold in junior pro. If you stack one, you run off kids who are capable or haven't hit their prime. This program is on the right direction in getting maximum opportunities, and that's what youth sports is about. I always wonder when people tell me their JV team was undefeated, I'm like, well, what did you accomplish? Those aren't the games you really want. You want to develop talent, and you want to put people in situations where they win some games and lose some games at that level so that they're prepared for all those opportunities when they count in varsity.
Yeah, we see that a lot with, some coaches want to win those JV games, and for some coaches it's basically another practice.
Yeah, that's right. But I think Gary hit the nail on the head when he talked about the competitiveness and kids, accomplishing something as they play. They're learning. And they might not win all the time. They're going to take some losses, but they're going to learn their skill. They're going to learn their position. And like Gary said it too, if you have to play another position or move a kid around, there's opportunity to do that, so that by the time they get in that middle school level, and it starts there. And I mean, we've got great coaching and folks that have been in the middle school program for a long time. Coach Kahiko and most of that staff has been there for a long time, and it just, I think, solidifies Caldwell County football.
Well, and youth sports are so much about developing talent. Again, everybody wants to win. I think we've established that fact, and nobody ever wants to lose any game or anything, whatever they're working on. But in youth sports, you're trying to develop talent, and in the junior pro ranks, by having two different age groups in each, or two different teams in each age group, you're developing two quarterbacks in each age group instead of one. You're developing multiple running backs instead of one or two or three. And I think that pays off later on because, it's not just competing against other teams, but sometimes on your own team, you're competing for playing time, and competition just makes everybody better.
One of the things, I didn't have any child play junior pro, but one thing about the weight limit, I understand it, but kids grow out of their bodies. There's kids that look like linemen when they're in 4th grade, and in 8th grade, they're tall and thin and fast. So if you only develop, this is clearly going to be our line for the future, one may move and 3 may become receivers because they change. And you've got to have a pool of talent that learns multiple positions. Number one, you don't know if you're going to be offense or defense at the high school. Very few people for the Barnes program play both ways. This is what we do well at the youth level, in my opinion, is we develop versatility. And when kids move or get disinterested, you haven't put all your eggs in one basket.
And talking about the high school team, I've mentioned this before, that I think sometimes we get a little spoiled. Again, everybody's looking ahead, and sure, you want to get to the state championship game, or you want to be playing Thanksgiving weekend and all those things, and yes, that would be fantastic. But when you go back and look at the season and just the last 6 or 7 years, that run, the Tigers have really beaten some teams that maybe when you look at them across the board were more athletic than they were bigger, stronger. but the Tigers have been able to, kind of run their system and do some things. And in a lot of ways, we've beaten some teams that maybe we shouldn't have beaten. I think when we went to Class 3A, when people looked, well, we're now in the same district with Paducah-Tillman, that's going to be tough. The Tigers took 4 in a row from Paducah-Tillman.
Yeah, I think we dominated them when we probably should not. You know, they're the larger school. You would think they'd have a more pool of talent just by sheer numbers, but yet for the most part, we dominated them the past several years.
Yeah.
And, I'm excited, though, guys, about going back to 2A. That's kind of where we were when I was in high school. I like the aspect that we're at Murray and Fort Campbell and even Mayfield. And, and then we throw Trigg County there at that last game of the year.
Yeah.
And it pretty much, that's a huge rivalry. So we don't lose our rivalry game. Just Mayfield becomes a district game, and then we have our big rivalry game at the end of the season. So it's a good fit, and I know that the coaching staff and the kids are going to be ready to be back in 2A.
Well, that's the thing you have to look at. I think a lot of people say, oh, no, here comes Mayfield. But like I said, 4 years ago, we were like, oh, no, now we're in the same district with Paducah-Tillman. I mean, you just have to kind of get geared up to play those games. And I thought the Tigers played Mayfield this year as good as anybody has all season.
One thing that I would like people to remember is Murray went up to OCAF and won and was in the regional final with Mayfield. So being in Mayfield's district does not doom you to not playing that third week. It's very possible that if we're going to have some adjustments next year. You don't lose 20 seniors and just magically overcome that. But we're going to take some potential lumps. We're going to play 3 very, very large teams as our first 3 games would be with Christian County, Apollo, and Hopkinsville. And it may be a growing pains adjustment. But that regional final is still there to be had. Mayfield loses a lot. We're going to have to determine that we have not been sentenced to some purgatory by being in 2A, as Ty has alluded to. The key is, are you going to get better or are you going to peak too early? And the question is, to me, how are we going to grow throughout the year, even if we have 3 difficult first games to start? Are we going to get better throughout the year, or are we going to just look at each other and throw in the towel? I don't think we're going to do that. But the question is, how do we progress and get people better? Because with 20 seniors, a lot of these kids that didn't play much are going to immediately have to contribute.
One thing looking forward to next year is the districts start to change a little bit. We've been so used to the first district playing the second district in the playoffs every year. And starting next week or next year, I can't remember the exact rotation, but we're going to start seeing the 3rd district and the 4th district and the 5th district at some point, which is going to bring about some lengthy first-round playoff trips. But that's another thing. And I think if you look ahead to next year, and I can't remember exactly which district it is, but I think just if you had to say right now that Mayfield and Caldwell are probably going to be the top 2 teams in the region, so might get to see Mayfield a couple of times looking ahead.
No doubt about it. And, those strength of schedules that we've played the past several years as we've been in 3A, nothing's going to change dropping back down to 2A again. With those first 3 games, Gary, as you mentioned, are as solid teams as you'll want to play. So you get those right off the bat, see what you're made of, and improve as you head on into the season, into district play.
I don't think we go 4-0 against Tillman without the schedule we played before them.
Exactly.
I don't see any. I think that we would have not been ready. Tillman, as good as they were, they did not pose as many. I mean, they had good athletes, and Henderson had good athletes. So when we played Tillman, who had good athletes, we were prepared for high-level running teams, and it showed.
Well, looking ahead, Caldwell County, with a lot of talent coming back, even though it's going to be some young talent, has had some success in the middle school ranks, has had success in the junior pro ranks. I mentioned earlier that it's tough to win it sometimes when basically I know those youth coaches think they're playing with, half a team sometime. But, I feel good about where Caldwell County is going, and I think if you look on down the road a little bit, there's some really good kids coming up in the program, and we just got to see where we got to get to.
I think that the key is going to be that we have to replace 3 linemen, And we do have a running back coming back with De'Eric. The receivers, when Oliver Parker was unable to play, Barron Wells stepped in well for him. I think there are some good athletes that have played some JV receiver. And the defense, we have a couple of D linemen coming back with Davis and Kilgore. A lot of linebackers got some play when Ben Holt got hurt. Travion Samuel and Seth Slayton got to play. They'll be back. Gonna have to find some secondary. I think we've been spoiled a little bit in our secondary, but there are a lot of people who played meaningful snaps coming back. And like you said, the middle school does have a group of quality athletes that I think can fill in when they get there.
Well, I just really enjoyed the football season this year. And again, I know a lot of people, that was a disappointing loss, a really disappointing loss to LaRue County in the second round of the playoffs. And again, maybe we have been spoiled because we'd been to the district championship game 6 years in a row, and I know everybody was kind of fired up to get there again and try to take on E-Town, but you know, when you post 8 wins, I mean, look at Kentucky's football team this year with 8 wins. You don't want to, you know, overlook those seasons because that's a pretty strong year, especially, as you guys have mentioned, the teams we played.
Yeah, it was a strong year, and those young men have nothing to hang their heads about. Kudos to them, the coaching staff, the entire football program. It's just a joy to watch these young men go out every Friday night and compete and just do what they do. And it's just going to be another. You know, Caldwell County has solidified itself in my mind, in West Kentucky anyway. You know, we've been ranked. We're ranked in the state every year. You know, and we keep talking about Mayfield being that gold standard. Well, I'm here to tell you guys, we're not far behind there. We're really not, and I would say we're up there. Yes, they've won more state championships. They may have, you know, had their big runs and not losing games, but we here in Caldwell County, we know football. It's a football town, and it's going to continue to stay that way as far as I can see.
Well, it is the holiday season, so just to put a bow on the fall sports campaign, I mean, volleyball had a great run.
Yep.
Again, I know it ended before they wanted it to end, but it was still a great season. And I really enjoyed soccer season. The Tiger soccer team didn't get to win a whole lot of games, but, you know, never saw those guys quit. Maybe got their heads down a little bit, but there's a big difference between getting your head down and quitting. And, you know, at times it was a trying season, but they kept fighting and got a win there at the end, toward the end of the season, and we're playing a whole lot better toward the end of the year. And the Lady Tigers played well, just played such a killer schedule, especially early in the season. They just couldn't quite make up for it. But fall season was a lot of fun for me. I hate that it's over, but looking forward now to basketball season. And in the Times Leader, it's basketball preview week. The Wednesday paper had the Lyon County preview section. Caldwell County is coming up on Saturday, and just so everybody knows, we're taping our show a little bit earlier this week so that you know, won't have to come in for the holiday on Thursday.
We did that last year.
Yeah, we actually came in Thanksgiving morning and did a live show, but glad you guys were able to come in and work it out, because I'm not sure if I could have got you two together on Thanksgiving morning or not. So
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, how about you, Gary?
I'm finding this stimulating.
Well, just wait till we get into our Star Wars lineup.
Well, I was going to say, we're about to that point where we need to take another break, and you know, on the other side of the break, it might be a good time to bust out that old top
five. It might be.
We're going to take a break here on the Sideline Report. Ty Englebright and Gary Goodacre joining me in the studio. And the top 5 Star Wars basketball starting lineup is coming up when we come back. We're going to take a timeout. Be back in just a minute on the Sideline Report. As we continue on the Sideline Report here on WPKY Radio, I want to tell you about Dave's Deal of the Week at U-Ride in Princeton. The Dave's Deal of the Week this week is a 2011 white Chevy Impala. It's a really nice car, and the price is reduced to $6,500 right now. Contact Dave at 270-365-3215. That's Dave's Deal of the Week at U-Ride, 310 Marion Road in Princeton. And we do continue on the Sideline Report. Again, good morning. Ty Englebright and Gary Goodacre in the studio with us. And it's time now for the top 5. We need some top 5 music like
we need our we need that, but maybe the John Williams would be appropriate today.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for the Star Wars. Okay, how are we going to do our top 5? Do we want to do the whole thing at once?
Well, let's explain first again for
Okay.
anybody that might have missed our segment or what we decided to do for our top 5 since it's basketball season. We're getting in the thick. We thought we would take Star Wars characters and place them inside a starting lineup for a basketball team. That sounds crazy, but if you're Star Wars fans, we hope you'll bear with us and hopefully get the gist of how our lineups go. And it's going to be I'm kind of curious to see how they'll go because I put a little bit of thought into mine, and I've got a little bit of explanation of what my positions of why. And you guys can elaborate on there as far as positions are concerned. And I threw a head coach in there too, and Gary said he had some bench riders, and I might throw one in there. I don't have it written down. But anyway, I don't care how we start.
Well, I'll tell you what, since you guys are bigger Star Wars fans than I am, and I'm not saying I'm not a Star Wars fan because I am. I just think you guys are a little bit bigger Star Wars fans than I am. I think I will go first and give my 5, and maybe then we'll come back and do the coaches later.
Okay.
So, okay, I did give this a little thought, probably more than
it deserves.
Okay, here are my guards. You want your guards to be a good tandem. So my guards are going to be Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. Mm-hmm. And on my team, Han always shoots first.
That's right. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you get that.
Okay, my center is going to be Chewbacca because you got to have some size in there. My forwards are Kylo Ren at the small forward because he's a real go-getter and got a bit of an attitude about him. I like that. And my other forward is Jar Jar Binks because dude's got some hops. Got a little size on the court. So that's my 5. Skywalker and Solo at the guards, Chewbacca in the middle, Kylo Ren and Jar Jar Binks at the forward spots.
That's pretty eerie, but I like the lineup, Gary. What do you think?
I get to go next.
I know. I don't care.
You want to save yourself for last. I understand.
No.
I can already read your mind.
Okay.
But I'll go second here.
Okay.
It's fine. I thought about point guard, and I've thought of all the great Spud Webbs and Muggsy Bogues. Yoda's my point guard. How are you going to get the ball from him? He's tiny. But you can see with his Jedi skills, he can get to the rim, probably dunk on anybody. So Yoda, plus he's brilliant. How can he not be your point guard?
I wanted to get Yoda on mine someplace, but I just couldn't make it work.
Well, I guess Han Solo's who didn't make my cut. I have Luke as the shooting guard. I think you got the 2 Jedis there. They're going to telepath whatever they can, force, use anything they can. They'll have the ball anywhere they want it. If you got Yoda and Luke Skywalker as your guards, you're set. But if somehow someone gets past them, I'm all about the defense with my front court. So I have Chewbacca, but he's more my small forward. That's what I'm going for here.
Wow.
He's going to be small, even though he's big, because I think he has the strength, and he's got 5 fouls. That's why I need somebody on the bench. Boba Fett's going to be one of my forwards because he's just nasty. And one of my forwards has got to be nasty. And Boba Fett is going to take care of anybody who somehow gets past Chewbacca. But but you got to have a rim protector. And if you have a rim protector, why stop with 2 arms? You should have 4. General Grievous is my center. He's got 4 arms. No one's getting past him. He'll block every shot possible. General Grievous takes care of everything. No one will score on us. We're set. But if someone fouls out, I've got Watto on the bench because he can fly.
Wow.
How you gonna stop him? He can fly as far as you want. No one will get him. And then he can just hover the ball over the court. We could play delay with him. Everything will be fine. So Watto can't start on this team, but if someone fouls out, I like the winged one.
Man, that's an impressive. That's about the most impressive lineup. I think I'm going to tell you right now, my lineup it can't even compare to Gary's.
Yeah, I want to do mine.
Now ours is similar. I mean, to tell you the truth, and here I go with mine, and I've got Yoda as my point guard again. Who can stop him? Spinning all over the Emperor. I mean, he can spin, he can fly, he can
handle the ball.
I mean, weave in and out, dunk if he wants to. I'm with you on the point guard. Now, my shooting guard is going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think Jedi mind trick and all. I think the ball just finds the basket with Obi-Wan. A little old and slow, but yet.
You could have young Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I could have young Obi-Wan.
This is time. Is this not time sensitive? We can just take them from whatever we want.
That's right.
Take the younger one.
I have to agree with Todd. I think my center is Chewbacca. Size, strength, agility, great hands.
The muscle
Chewbacca.
in the middle,
and finally he's got a crossbow. If he just gets he'll just pull out the crossbow. And then for my small forward, Ham Solo. Again, smart, clever, crafty. Again, shooting first. I like that. I didn't put that, but he's got a little deception about him. And then my power forward, my big guy, is going to be Jar Jar Binks, floppy ears and all. He's a big daddy in there. So Jar Jar Binks would be there. My bench rider, again, if somebody gets in trouble, I think I'd want Luke Skywalker. Just good all-around, all-purpose person off the bench there. So that's my lineup.
Well, and you talk about having Jar Jar Binks, and I had him on mine too. That guy's going to talk some serious trash to
he's
somebody,
a trash talker.
and really going to get them messed up by the way he speaks. I mean,
I agree with the trash talking Jar Jar Binks. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Now, I thought about just setting Jabba the Hutt right in the middle of the court, and just nasty as he is, all that slime and stuff, nobody'd be able to even do anything.
But the problem I thought of Jabba, I think he's longer than the court, so anytime the ball contacted him, we'd lose the ball. So I thought I just can't fit him in. So I thought about the wall of Hutt, but it just didn't work. And the problem with Jar Jar was he came out for my team, but he talked too much smack, and they just threw him out. They said, no, we're not going to put up with it.
Well, you just couldn't understand him, that's all.
I'd probably
Who do you think the Jerry West of the Star Wars world would be?
Oh, wow.
Or the Wilt Chamberlain?
I don't know.
I thought about we could approach it that way. There's all ways you can approach it.
Well, there's so much to do with the Force, though. Do these guys have to swear off the Force on the basketball court to make it even? Mm-hmm. Or, as you say, can Yoda just come out and wherever he's at use the Force to make a basket?
Yeah. I mean, I would think the Force is in play. I really would.
Oh, wow.
Don't you, Gary?
I'll use the Force.
No,
I won't use the Force.
The Force is. I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me. I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me.
I think that if he alternated using it and not using it, that could play into it because you think he's going to use it and then he turns it off. It's brilliant. Yoda's just awesome.
He's going
to take care of it.
I agree.
There's nothing you can do without him.
He's definitely, he's the last several years MVP running. So I mean, Star Wars MVP. So I think Yoda is the man. He's kind of the. Maybe we'll call him the Kobe Bryant of the Star Wars basketball all-stars.
Well, my original plan was to find somebody in the Star Wars universe so obscure that maybe you guys wouldn't know who that was, but I wasn't sure I could do that.
I don't know. I think you probably stood him down. Gary's probably better on that. I love the Watu pick.
I think
that one came from nowhere.
Ben would know more even than I would.
Yeah, but the Watu pick is pretty good, and they're saying about Watu. Watu's got wings; he can kind of fly. He was kind of a in the episodes 1, 2, and 3. He was kind of Anakin's caretaker, so to speak, slave master, I guess. Right? Isn't that right?
I think the main goal was he was the one that had young Anakin.
Yeah.
And, he had to win the pod races so that
exactly.
Qui-Gon Jinn could extract him from his
slavery.
Servitude. Yes,
yes,
absolutely. But we're the Salacious Crumbs. That's our mascot, so we're definitely going to be okay there.
Okay, so we've got our teams. Let's talk about who to lead these band of athletes, these Star Wars, these stellar stars of the galaxy. What kind of coach can make this happen for us?
Well, my coach is going to be Admiral Akbar because the dude is the master at defense, especially the it's a trap defense.
Oh, man. But I'm impressed now.
Fine,
I'm really impressed.
But he's truly a one-trick admiral. Once you figure it out, he always traps.
But defense wins championships, and that's my guy with Admiral Akbar.
He's not going to do the boxing 3 or the diamond or anything like that.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Triangle and 1 or whatever he does. I love it. It's a trap. What about you, Gary?
Well, see, this is what confuses people.
That's classic.
It's because you want Han Solo to play. I want him to coach because he's a master motivator.
Yeah.
Because if people were not doing what he wants, he would just say, that's not how the Force works. And he always would have a bad feeling about the game, so he would work harder to game plan. Because every time he thought he knew it, he'd go, I've got a bad feeling about this. And he would work harder to make the game plan work. And that's why I think Han Solo's your master motivator because, I mean, he got the girl. He wins. He wins everything. Han Solo wins everywhere. So that's why you put him as your coach.
Man, I'm telling you, I like the pick, but I'm going with Darth Vader because in my mind he'll just eliminate any other team out there if they lose, And so by the time, if you're playing for the championship and he doesn't like it, he'll just kill everybody.
Yeah, he'll crush their throat.
Crush their throat, and then then you're the only team, you're the last team standing. So, in the Star Wars universe, or you just might take the Death Star and just blow up the team bus. I don't know.
I wanted to put Vader on my playing court someplace, but I just couldn't work him in. I thought, the encounter suit or whatever, I thought that would be a little bulky to get around in. He couldn't move very well. So.
His breathing has trouble. It's kind of like he needs a big puffer,
Yeah,
well, he couldn't play in Denver.
Right.
He just couldn't play in Denver. He'd have to sit there
down the
bears. No, can't do it. Unless he gets some Perrier from Spaceballs, then maybe he can do that.
He can play on Mustafar though. And
that's true. Yes.
But if we were doing a hockey team, I would have him out there as my enforcer.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he'd definitely do well at that. But the lightsaber might melt the ice, and then what are you going to do?
Right.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
We're going to be all right. I like the idea that we're bringing different elements to the table, but in the end, where's this tournament held is going to have some idea. Like you said, is it on Mustafar? Is it on Okay, it's not on Alderaan, but where is this tournament going to be held is the question. Because, Coruscant or Naboo, the elements play a role. So
I agree.
We need to know the location of our team. It might even change what I do.
Well, if it was on the ice planet, it had to be inside someplace, maybe in a cave or something.
They got a dome there,
yeah.
I think.
Oh, a dome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so there's lots of considerations with the location and home field advantage. I mean, you saw on the pod races what the home field advantage could do for Anakin. So I might have to consider Anakin if we're going to have them in the arena there at Mos Eisley, not Mos Eisley, but the other town. I can't remember the name where they had them, but where Sepulba was defeated.
Yeah. Sepulba was defeated there. Yeah.
So what we've got to think about
you guys are above my knowledge. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
But you asked for this, so
yeah.
I didn't come up with this idea. You did.
And I think Bib Fortuna, he kind of came to my mind.
He's pretty tall. Got some reach.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of, in the Galactic Empire as well as in the Outer Rim, they're players. There's a lot of talent out there that you could put on a court and score and have a probably field a pretty darn good competitive team. We just can't mention them all here today.
So nobody had Finn or Poe Dameron or Jen Ursa or.
Listen, you got to build your talent slowly.
Yeah.
They're on JV. They're working their way up. They're not ready. They haven't even had episode. We don't know what they are yet.
Okay.
So we're really working on established veterans because this is this is win now.
Yeah.
This is not a development league.
Yeah.
Did you give your coach? Have you done your coach yet?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask.
Here we go.
C-3PO and Han Solo are going to be my coaches. I already said Han
Wow.
Solo, but C-3PO is the assistant coach because, well, first of all, he's always worried. So that's what you want. But at the same time, if things get crazy, you can fit him in a wicker basket and everything will be fine. He can always get through.
He's like Coach K's Wojo.
Okay, so I have a question now. Now that we have our teams,
yes,
who would our Star Wars teams play? Would they play
the really rottens?
I was going to say from other universes, like would they play the Star Trek top 5 or the Guardians of the Galaxy? Would they play those guys? I mean, who's our Star Wars starting 5 going to play?
Well, I think they start in a league that is comparable to what we've talked about. So I think we can take, of course, we have some of the same players, but I think we'd probably get a pool from all the episodes. Anything goes, and we have a draft.
Wow.
And then we form a league based upon, we try to get a few of these, I don't know who we get as owners. I'm thinking that Jabba could be a great owner. The Hutts, they're known for, their wealth. They could probably start a league, with their wealth right away. And we probably, the foundation or the league office be on Tatooine, and then we could kind of go from there,
This sounds a whole lot like a Saturday morning cartoon where our Star Wars teams are going to play the Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, I'd be open to that. I mean, I really would.
I'm stunned by your amazing ability to make a league out of this. I wasn't even going that far. I didn't even know if we'd play. I thought it was an exhibition barnstorming tour. I didn't realize we were going to go hardcore salary cap draft, and I just figured we'd go raise money for,
kind of exhibition style.
Yeah, I really believe this was more exhibition status. But if you want to get going with this, then I suppose I could create the league of extraordinary basketball players of sci-fi. We could get at least a 16-team bracket going.
Yeah.
Well, it probably wouldn't go over here really well, but I've got to think that somewhere in a galaxy far, far away, you could do this.
We ought to probably leave it there. People out there are probably going, what in the world are they talking about? They probably think we've had way too much turkey, guys, or something.
Well, maybe
something besides turkey.
I did mention earlier, though, that we've done this before Thanksgiving, that we're actually recording a little earlier, so we get to listen to this and enjoy it again.
I cringe
or enjoy
a
it
little
the
bit.
first time.
Yeah. But it's awfully fun to think about that. I think it's been fun, and those of you that are Star Wars fans, I think you get the gist.
And the other people quit listening. So
that's exactly right. But there's so many possibilities and so many places you can take it, and I think once we got on a roll, it is kind of fun.
Yeah. And we do have more sports talk to come, so don't leave us yet. It's our special Turkey Day edition of the Sideline Report with Ty Englebright and Gary Goodacre in the studio here at WPKY. We just recorded it a little bit earlier this week because of the holiday. We're going to talk a little baseball coming up. People are trying to change the game that we all love and love dearly, and I don't know about some of those changes, but we're going to discuss those. So stay with us. The Sideline Report continues right after this timeout. We are back on the Sideline Report. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Ty Englebright, Gary Goodacre in the studio. I'm Todd Griffin of the Princeton Times-Leader, and having a good time on the show today. It's kind of like old times on the Sideline Report. Studio is a little different, and the setup's a little different, but Ty, good for you to see you back in here. Gary, glad you're back in here too.
It's great to be back, Todd. Thanks for asking.
I can't believe you asked me back.
I'm kind of thinking the same thing, Gary. I don't know if we'll be back after the Star Wars thing, but we'll see.
I think Gary is a four-timer. You join a select crew by being on here for a fourth time.
Do I get a jacket or something for this?
No, but we'll work on that.
Excellent.
Yeah, maybe in the future. Talking a little baseball now. Saw a story on theathletic.com the other day. I don't know if you guys sign up for that or not, but for less than $5 a month, there's a lot of good content, a lot of national writers on there. I don't get paid anything, so I'm not shilling for them. I'm just saying that if you like sports, you might want to check out The Athletic because they have a whole lot on there. Jason Stark actually had a column on there last week about proposed changes to Major League Baseball. And I think the whole must speed up the game thing is kind of overwrought, but it keeps coming up, and I just want to get your guys' take on it because, again, we're all big baseball fans here, and we all like different teams, so it's a good subject for all of us to discuss. And one of the first things he brought up was a pitch clock. I know this has been used in college and in minor league baseball for a while now. I'm not really sure how much it speeds up the game, but I think at some point we're going to see a 20-second pitch clock in Major League Baseball. And Ty, how do you feel about that?
No, I'm a strict traditionalist. I'm against most any changes. In fact, I don't even like the designated hitter that much. But it's part of where we are, and it's been around a long time in the American League. I don't want to see it coming to the National League, but I think baseball, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Is my philosophy on all these, and we're going to talk about them. And so I kind of like nip it in the bud, but. We live in a society now where we want to seem like we want to tweak and change everything. But we've got a game that's been around since the 1800s that is just beautiful. It's poetry in motion. It's a game of inches. It's all that. I think you start tweaking it with times and different things, and you drastically, one little thing can really just take away from it. So that's my take.
Well, the prevailing thought is that games are too long, and maybe they are. One of the things I've actually talked about, though, Gary, is shorter breaks between innings, and that's the thing I always come back to is they say, well, that 50 or 60 years ago you could play a game in 2.5 hours. And I'm like, well, back then they didn't have 45 minutes of commercials every game. So to me, that's a place where they could cut some time.
I think that one of the reasons games went quicker was that we did not have the abundance of relievers, and the ball was put in play quicker because as starters tired, they were not able to strike out. I mean, obviously the elite could, but you had more balls in play for more ability to get people out quicker rather than waiting for a 5-pitch strikeout potentially. I think the pitch count seems great until you realize that if a pitcher simply wants another sign, they step off and restart it. So it almost seems like it's not going to have the intended goal of saving that much time there. I think that you've hit the nail on the head. The time between innings is where I believe you can save the time of a game more efficiently.
Well, and one thing we've seen in all sports more recently is the quick 10 or 15-second commercial while the game's still going on. You know, they don't leave the game. You know, it's kind of the game's in a little box, and they show the commercial. I think that's what we're going to end up seeing more of because studies have shown that people don't tune out for those commercials. If you're like me at home and a ball game goes to a break, what do? You flip over to another game.
Right. But I think with phones and social media now, we're into an instantaneous thing anyway. It might be more effective for an ad anyway to be quicker instead of a 30 or a 60 the way it is and just have a shorter ad time. Maybe that people are so used to hitting their screens, whether it's a Twitter or a Facebook, and they can quickly receive that message and then get it and then go right on. That might be something.
But if you go to a Major League Baseball game, at least one of the things that always sticks out to me is an inning ends. And, of course, Gary and I have officiated youth sports before. And, you know, back then when we were umpiring, as soon as one out or one inning was over, you're always, you know, hustling the other team out there and let's get warmed up and let's get another inning. But if you go to a Major League Baseball game, the guy that's pitching sits in the dugout for 2 or 3 minutes before he even comes out to start warming up for the next inning. And I'm like, you know, if there's any dead time that needs to be fixed, it's right there.
I think that you have to concern yourself with the new opportunities of the digital age like Ty talked about. There are many ways to get this ad revenue going without the traditional commercial. We are not limited by the 1970s technology where they probably would have a difficult time doing these cut-ins. You've got crawl, you've got product placement. I think that they can get their ad revenue without the traditional 2.5-minute break where you see 5 30-second commercials. And if they can get that with the box, if they can get that as they've already done with the green screen behind home plate, then maybe they would be able to say, we've got a strict 2-minute, get the pitcher out there, get him warmed up, and let's go right to action. And if for some reason it overlays by 10 seconds, then you have the box in box, finish the commercial in the big box, start the next at bat in the small box, and I think you're going to be fine if you work with that.
And, well, you make a good point there, but you know, watching the game on TV is different than the experience you get at the ballpark. So, you know, you've got 46,000 people at a ball game, and why should they, you know, should the game experience be different just to accommodate those watching at home? Yes, it's about advertising. Yes, it's about revenue. There's no doubt about it. It's the almighty dollar. But, you know, it's been this way for such a long time. There are ways, yes, you could probably cut the time, but do it intelligently and don't necessarily change the game, change how the message is sent.
Well, and that's the thing. You talk about the ballpark, the experience for the people there. I've always thought that major league teams kind of liked having that extra time between each half inning because the people in the ballpark get up and, you know, you go to the concession stand or you go to the place in the stadium where they're selling T-shirts. Right, you know, you go to the
souvenir shop, team store.
So that kind of gives people time to wander around and spend money and not really miss any of the game. But I do think that it's all geared toward people watching on TV. You know, that's the thing that I think pays the bills for all professional sports leagues.
The contracts are much better for the revenue streams from television because you've got to have content on these regional sports networks, and baseball gives you the most content, 162 games, and it gives you content between NBA or college basketball and NFL college football. It fills in hours of time, and they're going to pay good money for it. Because what else? Do you remember the strike in 1994 in August when no professional sport league was playing? I mean, did you ever see as many tennis highlights on ESPN as you did then? Content is key, and that's a big time. It's going to go up in value because they've got to compete with many other media.
Yeah, the big word you hear anymore with TV and even the professional sports is inventory. That's why, the NFL wants to add a couple of more teams and maybe even play a 17th or 18th game because it allows them to stretch out the season another 2 or 3 weeks, and you have more inventory to sell. You can sell it to more networks. You can get another network involved and pay you the big bucks to come and show your game. And if you don't sell out in the stadium, it's unfortunate, but it's not really a deal breaker for professional sports.
Right. What I know they talked about the clock. Was it a couple years ago? They talked about either raising or lowering the mound or shortening it down.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would help the timing of it all, but again, I think if you go and fundamentally change the game, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I understand about the revenue. I think there's something that you have to do either on the level, the broadcast level, or to make it work. I don't think you ought to change the game.
I think though the game is changed fundamentally by analytics. In statistics, the larger your sample size, the better opportunity you can make decisions. Baseball has the longest season, therefore the highest sample size. And they have figured out expected win values of various types of methods to playing. And they figured out it's power arms and power bats. Well, power arms strike people out, and power bats strike out a lot. This is what they're going to do. Look at your rosters. You're going to carry 13 pitchers because you're going to flame throw through the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. You're going to carry sluggers who strike out 175 to 225 times a year because it's worth it. They've done the studies. It's worth it if the person has the ability to hit the ball out of the park to have them try to do so is so much less insignificant than the most groundouts. Yes, a few groundouts move people at bases, but if the numbers say go up there and throw it 99 miles.
But everybody, we live in a time where everybody wants to see, the hot pitch roll in anymore. We don't have guys. But that was a thing of beauty. Will we ever see 402 again? And those kind of numbers, maybe limitedly. But what we want to see, what everybody at home wants to see, is heat and power.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I was going to bring up is they talk about trying to eliminate or just completely take out the shifts that people use on defense now. And of course, the first thing anybody thinks of, or at least from my generation, and you guys are right there with me. If you see a shift, it's hit the ball where they ain't. That's what we always heard. However, analytics says no, that you're better off to go ahead, still hit the ball in the gap. Don't worry about where the infielders are. And that's what you end up seeing. And everybody's like, well, the shift is running the game. And I'm like, well, no, it's not really. It hasn't really changed it that much. But I think the perception is it's a big difference.
The shift has no impact on the 3 true outcomes of a walk, strikeout, or a homer. It doesn't affect any of them. If you're trying to hit the ball out of the park, who cares where they are? The shift is immaterial, and that's what a lot of these teams are building their rosters around. That's another issue about rules. I was watching, I'll go ahead and say it, you were talking about the DH. I had a DVR'd documentary about the DH and its roster composition. You have composed your roster to a set of rules, and if the rules change, then it's going to take you a while to catch up. Why did Rick Pitino do so well with the three-pointer? He happened to have a roster suited for it. Other people didn't see it, and he bombed threes. And what you have to realize is if you're ahead of the curve, you don't want to give up your advantage. So these people who have comprised a roster of 13 flamethrowers and 12 players, 8 of which are trying to hit the ball out of the park, because you do have to have a shortstop and a catcher and a center fielder that are defensively precocious, then why would you want, I've made my roster this way. Are you going to change the rules? Well, now I have a roster that doesn't suit what the rules are.
But every time people see something different, they want to try to make a rule against it. And, you talk about the shift. That's not a recent thing.
No, Ted Williams.
Teams were playing shifts back in the 20s and 30s. They would try to shift against Williams and all those guys. And I think it's one of those things that you just let it play out, and it's either going to become the norm for the way guys play, and it will be accepted, or teams will determine at some point that it's really not having that big an impact. Might as well go back to playing more traditional defense.
Well, the game's going to evolve, I think, no matter what. You look at the game the way it was when it 1800s. Even it's generational. It is fundamental. It's the same with the ball, but yet it's going to evolve over time. It can't help it. I just don't know if we need to take a bunch of different rules. I mean, yes, there are some things that have probably helped the game, but it really hasn't changed that much from its inception, has it? The original?
Not really. I think there are some things, and Gary mentioned it about the home run hitters. 50 years ago, guys would have been flat embarrassed to strike out 100 times in a season.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's no big deal if you hit your 30 to 35 home runs and get 100 RBIs. The productive out is kind of, an old way of thinking.
And even RBIs, they look at that as team dependent. They want to know what's your batting average of balls in play, what's your percentage of hard hit balls, launch angle. And when people talk about the shift in a negative way, one thing I ask them is, okay, in the last inning, do you want to be allowed to bring your outfielders shallow because you feel like that's their arm extent they can throw to throw a runner out? Because in a way, is that any different? You're playing to a situation. You want to be able to play no doubles and scoot your outfielders back. If you want the flexibility to move your outfielders in and out, you've got to be able to let your infielders move left and right.
Yeah. I don't know if we will see rules against the shift. Maybe we will. One thing I do think is coming, and I do think the pitch clock is coming at some point, unfortunately, for the three of us for sure. But I think one thing we're going to see is when games go to extra innings, you're going to see some kind of tiebreaker scenario come into play. I really don't like that, because the one thing I used to always tell people if they went to a baseball game with me is we're there until the game's over. If it's 9 innings or 33 innings, I don't walk out early. But I do think for TV purposes and just, for the athletes and the people there, that eventually you're going to see some kind of tiebreaker deal. And we saw that, I believe, was it the World Baseball Classic? That you played the 10th inning straight up, I believe.
And then the 11th, you went to a runner on
first and second.
It was first and second.
For the World
High
Baseball,
school is a runner on second.
World Baseball Classic went first and second to start the 11th inning, which, really makes it interesting on how you play that. To me, that kind of cheapens the game. I don't like it. I do understand the thought that, hey, we don't want to be here all night, but I just don't like.
But in college football, overtime takes out kickoffs and punts.
Right.
So you are deciding a college football game by a set of rules that are different from which you played the original regulation.
Correct.
There are some slight differences. Obviously, soccer's the biggest one you think of with PKs. But when I look at baseball, I'd almost rather tie than have the game that radically changed in an 11th or 12th inning. And when I was watching the World Baseball, yes, I've watched it. Okay, I'm a junkie. I was watching the Japan series on MLB. But seriously, there's not much you can do. You bunt and try to hit a sac fly. Well, then basically you are deciding a game that has been played 9 innings under all the rules, and you basically said, now who's the best bunter and sac fly hitter? Those are fine things, but you had 9 innings to bunt and hit sac flies or do whatever else you could have done. But I will say this about pitching. These pitchers are so valuable to their teams that they dread extending them beyond what their so-called defined role is. They do want their 1-inning guy pitching 3, the 13th, 14th, the 15th. They don't want this. This is asset protection, and they're willing to compromise the game itself to some extent to protect their assets.
Yeah. Key word, assets,
right.
Money. That's what it comes down to.
I think I agree with you in the sense that I would rather see a tie game than to see, some crazy scenario at the end where you're trying to figure it out. However, people don't want tie games. You know, that's why you have the PKs in soccer. Hockey used to have tie games all the time during the regular season. Well, they came up with the overtime, the short overtime, and then a shootout to avoid that. So I think the average, Joe baseball watcher probably doesn't want to say, hey, it's the end of the 10th. I hope we can tie this game, because we're not playing an 11th. However, if you play a lot of innings, you end up with your outfielder pitching or, the backup first baseman throwing a couple of innings. So
I think a compromise they could easily do was if you have a game of a certain length or you have X extra innings in a Y-day period, that you get a free call-up from AAA. Bring up 2 pitchers to just mitigate that. If that's your fear, that I'm going 16 innings and I have no staff, then I think you could have some rule negotiated by the unions to say, okay, then call up a couple AAA pitchers to get you by and not count that as an option or something.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Or maybe just expand rosters as a way of appeasing the union or somebody and say, well, instead of 25-man roster, it's now a 28-man roster, but 2 of those have to be pitchers.
Yeah.
Or you declare who's eligible, a pool of 30, but on any given day, 25 are eligible.
But, we've already seen where they have actually limited the number of visits to the mound that you get to make. It's now just 6 in one game. I've seen some things where maybe they would limit the number of pitching changes you can make or limit the number of pitchers you could use in a game. I'm not sure I like those things either.
Well, you might get stuck.
Right.
I mean, you're eventually somebody's going to get stuck if there's not any way. There's a way, I'm sure, to prevent that, but where either you tie or you're done or whatever. But without putting a clock on it, I don't know.
But what happens if you've run out of pitching changes and
you have an injury,
or if a guy's just getting killed out there,
hammered,
and there's no way to get him out of the game, so now you've cheapened the game that way. What was a 2-2 ball game ends up being 25-2 because you ran out of pitching changes.
I mean, can't we agree it's pretty good right now just as it is?
Well, that's my thing on sports. People keep coming out and saying, well, we need to make this change for this sport or this change for that sport. And I'm like, yes, because over the last 100 years, they've all stunk so bad, we need to try to fix them. It's like, no, they're pretty good. Football was pretty good before they wanted to make too many changes. And, yes, I'm all for things that make the game safer, but I think in some ways we've gotten to the point where it's difficult to compete anymore because you've made so many rules.
I can tell you, I don't think football as we know it will look the same 30 years from now.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't think it will.
I do think one thing about baseball that this is geared toward also is the younger fan / participant. I think they want to keep kids involved in baseball, and I think they want them to watch it. If you don't watch it, it's less likely you will play, even if you're talented in it, because you'll probably watch or consume something else. There's so many other things a kid can do, even on their phone. They can be playing Fortnite all night, and they can be playing their PS2 against anybody in the world, or PS4 or whatever. But I think the key is they know they have a stable pipeline from the Latin countries, but I think that they like to have a diverse representation of many populations in MLB. They want Asian players, and they want Latin players. They want people who grew up in the United States watching it. And I think that what they're looking for is to keep the young fan from everywhere in the world who has a phone interested in playing the game, so they have good talent playing the game.
Well, I guess that's the ultimate question that I come back to, because they keep saying, baseball used to take 2 hours and 15 minutes to 2 hours and a half to play. Now it's just a little over 3 hours. Is there really that much complaining from the fans that the games are too long? Is anybody going, hey, this football game was too long, or this baseball game, or this basketball game? Is there really that much groundswell of, hey, these games need to be shorter, or is it just a TV and management position?
I think it's not just the time of game, but the amount of ball in play time. The game could actually be longer, but if more balls were put in play, I think they'd be happier. However, the data says that your best way to win is power arms and swinging and missing. So I think this may be something that, unless the analytics say something different, the game could be 2 hours, but count the time in which the ball is in play, not just in the pitcher's hand or not just in the catcher's mitt, but been actually hit and a play being made on the infield or outfield. I think they're more concerned with that than the actual length.
Yeah. Even the TV announcers kind of feed into that a little bit, though, because, there was a Major League playoff game that went extra innings this year, and yet all you heard from the announcers were, wow, this game's really going a long time. And I'm like, it's a tie game in extra innings. That's kind of its own drama right there. But instead of building the drama, they were just like, oh, man, we've all got to get up tomorrow. We need to get this game over. And I'm like, that's not helping anybody promote anything.
No, 100% agreed. I mean, it shouldn't be that way. But I think that is the world that we're living in now. We're in a hurry. Things are coming out at us awful fast, and we just expect things to be rapidly. And we're programmed for that. We're programming I think ourselves with our computer, with our screen times, and we expect instant. I'm snapping my fingers here because we just want it to be over and done with, and it just and that's a shame.
Former Major League pitcher Jim Cott, former Cardinal, has actually proposed 7-inning Major League games, and again, the traditionalist in me is like, no, don't change anything. But if there had to be a change,
it might be the simplest.
Yeah, I would almost go for that, because at least then you're not changing the essence of the game.
Exactly.
The key to that is, once again, is roster composition. You would have to look. I have a situation where I am designed for a 9-inning game. Some people, that's going to help them. Others, it would hurt them. Now, the key about a 7-inning game is less time for sales of concessions and for the store. Obviously, there are some benefits to a 7-inning game, I suppose you could say, for health. But, I mean, the World Series used to be best of 9.
Right.
So are we really sitting here saying that that's an impossibility? I don't think so.
Well, again, I think we all agree that we don't want them to change any more than they have to. Mm-hmm. The designated hitter myself, but it does open up some opportunities for some players who are getting on up there in age but are still big draws, and that's what professional sports are, to still be out there and be a part of the game. So I'll live with that even if I don't like it. But some of the other changes, like, again, limiting the shifts or the pitch clock or limiting the number of or this make, I don't think I'm for those.
I don't either. I know I'm not. I just think we'll just leave it as it is. So, plain and simple.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the things that are mentioned are going to make a significant difference. But if they feel like they have to make a couple for, as you just call it, window dressing, maybe it'd have a placebo effect and people would think it's better because you added a little secret sauce, when in reality the beautiful game was beautiful either way.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I want to thank you guys for coming in. Ty Englebright here with us today.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you for getting the show started. I think it
was a joint thing, but it was kind of, I mentioned it to you, and then you said, "What about this?" And it just worked together, and it's been a fantastic thing, and I'm so tickled for you all and Ham Broadcasting that it continues. So thanks for having me.
And Gary Goodacre here today. And Gary, you haven't missed a Caldwell County football game since what, 98?
97.
97.
The third game
Wow.
of 97
That's
was
awesome.
my first game, and I'm amazed that something hasn't happened to cause me to miss one. But one day, I suppose, I'll have to train a replacement. So if you're interested, in the next 5 or 6 years, I can teach you my ways.
Well, we're glad you haven't missed a game.
I'm glad I haven't either.
And thanks for coming in today
Thank
and
you.
being on the Sideline Report.
A pleasure.
That's going to wrap up another one. Anybody with any final thoughts on Thanksgiving Day as we say goodbye?
I'd like to do my Madden impression. I just can't do that. I miss John Madden on Thanksgiving. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see Kentucky take care of Louisville in a big way and have a nice bowl
Yes.
because these seniors have really stayed the course. Benny Snell, I know, is a junior, but he'll in all likelihood leave. I think this team has had its one hiccup against Tennessee, but I'd like to see them go 9-3 and have a nice bowl in Florida and keep the momentum going for future recruits, because I think the recruiting's going well. I'd like to see a big Kentucky win on
Outback,
Friday.
baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Sideline Report for this week. This is Todd Griffin of the Princeton Times-Leader. Follow me on Twitter at ToddGriffin100. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for listening to the Sideline Report. All right, good deal. Thank you, guys.
You are
Thank
not
you.
going to get that anywhere.
We actually went a little longer than I thought we would, so.
It's fun. Quality.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Oh, I enjoyed it.
We'll figure it out
back
again
at the
sometime.
bank?
Yeah,
What are you doing at the bank?
kind of the same old thing except more commercial.
I think I took 3 breaks.
Good. Did you stop the video?
No.
So I do commercial lending and deposit gathering.